Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This meeting of the Denville Township Board of Education is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice of this meeting was provided to the Daily Record and/or the Star Ledger of Morris County, has been delivered to the Township Clerk, and has been posted on the bulletin board of the Board of Education office and at each of the school buildings in the district. Roll call, please.
Dr. Moore,
Here.
Mrs. Seidelis,
Here.
Dr. Aruna Jatasan,
Here.
Mr. Cass, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Capello,
Here.
Mr. Kim.
Here. There was no executive session, and so if we can all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, it looks like we have a number of presentations upcoming, but I'm sure that we'll hear more about them later. Dr. Forte is not here yet, so if we can go ahead with the Assistant Superintendent comments. Dr. Cullis?
I just want to congratulate both Lakeview and Riverview schools. They both earned the State School of Good Character again. So it's a 5-year award, and they have to requalify and go through the entire process again. So they both qualified, and they have scored high enough to be considered for the National School of Good Character Awards as well. So we'll be hearing more about that after the school visits. So congratulations to both of those schools. The COGAT testing will be beginning on February 22nd. That is a slight change for 5th grade, so that 5th graders can participate in some of the Read Across America events. The COGAT testing for 5th grade only has been moved to February 22nd and 23rd. This concludes the Assistant Superintendent's reports.
Thank you, Dr. Cullis. Did you say it was Lakeview and Riverview that got the honor?
Yes. Valley View has already gotten, they're on a different cycle. So Lakeview and Riverview were up for their 5-year cycle. But recently Valley View received it as well, but they did not have to reapply this year.
Great, thank you. We'll proceed with the business administrator comments, and then we'll go back to Dr. Forte. So, Mrs. Gorofsky.
I just want to make one clarification from the last board meeting. I stated that the insurance for the casualty and property for the flood in December was going to reimburse $10,000 for contents. That was incorrect. They did reimburse us $1,200 for contents, but did not include a wall or floor or electrical. That was not part of the contents. So I do want to clarify that.
Great, thank you very much. And we'll go ahead to the superintendent comments. Dr. Forte? Did you need a second or?
I think I'm good. Valley View Winter Sports Athletics recap. I'll come back to that. June 10th, looks like we'll have the Valley View Athletics at our board meeting. And new law just passed to allow the Board of Education to return vote to April if the board is interested in doing that. And that would allow for the board to do that without a budget vote. So back in 2010, the legislature passed a law to allow boards to move if they chose to move their election to November, there would be no cost for the vote. So if you do it, there's an advantage, and disadvantage. The disadvantage is you now have to pay for the election, which is approximately $20,000. That could be a little off. Like they told me that the cost of the primary was $15,000. Now, I don't really know the amount of time, but I know like for a board vote, you'd probably want to do the full amount of time. So let's say between $15,000 and $20,000 for an election. So the board would have to pay for that. The positive thing about it is if you move the vote to April and you want to do what's called a separate proposal, that's when the board decides to take certain items in the budget, put it outside of the budget, put it as a separate proposal to the township, to the public, and vote on it. There's advantages to that. The advantage is you can raise funds on the outside of the budget that will grow as well, which is a good thing. The weird part about it doing it now, and I'm saying weird purposely, is because if you do it now, you actually start the school year without whatever it is you voted for, because you vote for it in November, and then you actually get it in January. But the taxpayers have their tax bill redone, and it goes back to 7/1 on 1/1. So how about this? It's cleaner if you do it in April. It's a little odd. It doesn't feel right because you're starting the school year off with whatever it is that you don't, without whatever the item is that you're trying to vote for. Now in April, you have plenty of time to get that moving. That's the way it used to be. So this is a new law that's just passing, and it does allow this now. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. We have PTA meetings coming up. We did February 7th. Dino did Lakeviews with me. That was nice. We had a good showing. We talked a little bit about some of the issues that we're facing with space and finance and things like that. I basically break it down into all like categories. We talk about some updates in curriculum, the things that Dr. Coles is working on. We talk about personnel. We talk about finance. We talk about operations. I shared that document with you so you could see what it is. Right now, I'm scheduled to do Riverview's PTA meeting on February 21st, and I'm scheduled to do Valley View's PTA meeting on March 21st with either Andrea or Mike or both of you. I will discuss those things, those items in that sheet I gave you. And I also want to remind everybody that I share with you a document with both committees called Concerns. And I just want to make sure that everybody's reviewing it. And, if you have questions, please bring them to me. The only one I haven't gone over it with yet is you, Mr. Kim, because you're not on one of the committees. But I'd be happy to, talk more about that. Some of these concerns are things that are, fairly large problems that there might not be a solution to right now, but it might be something that we just need to think about it, keep it on our mind so that it doesn't go by the wayside. Cause I think they're important things, but they're, things that are kind of a little larger problem that can be solved right now. But some of these things that I've been talking about, and if you notice today, the Daily Record picked up that article. So that was pretty good. It picked up the article on the space concerns about the purchase of 46 Nicole Drive and the renewal of the lease. They didn't get it 100% right. A little bit of the data was a little off, but you know what? It's putting the message out to the public that we're concerned about these things. We don't really have a solution for it right now, but we are still concerned and we're thinking about it. I will, if I can figure out why I'm not able to access my winter sports update, I will try to get that going in a little while. But for now, that's the end of the superintendent's report.
Great, thank you. Yeah, maybe for the good of the cause, you can bring us up to date on the sports related stuff. Just for clarification, you mentioned April, and that's not for election of board members, but to put out questions for budget items, right?
It would be for both. It would be the election for board members, which my association, the Superintendent Association, supports that because they feel it depoliticizes a board vote. I don't know, I mean, there's schools of thought, right? You have more people coming out to the general election, so that's usually a good thing. But if you run an election just for the board, there is no political party, anything like that. So it's really just all independent stuff. So again, I'm not recommending this to you. I just think that it's important for you to understand it, know about it, and consider it. It's not something you're allowed to do for this year, but it is something you could do for next year. The board would have to vote and change it. if you're interested in it, I'll learn more about it. Right now, I don't even know like what the date is when you have to tell them.
Mr. Kim, I just have one quick question.
Yes, please.
I'm just curious because I've never been around when the election's been in April. If a board member's elected in April, when would they take office? Like when would they actually be sworn in? So it's still, so they're elected still until, that's interesting. Okay.
The reorg was always in January, right? Yeah.
Wouldn't the term coincide with the school year then, like a July 1st start for the term? No, it would be still January.
The school had to operate in a fiscal year still, July 1 through June 30th.
This thing is so new. It just happened like a couple of days ago. I'm sure, in the NJSBA report, they'll have some guidance on there, and same thing in mine, and we'll share that with you.
Yeah, I actually attended the last meeting, and I'll make the announcements or my observations during good of the cause. So thank you. Okay, is there anything else from the board? No further questions. Okay, so we'll go ahead and open up for public discussion at 7:41 p.m. Seeing that there's no one online and no one in the chambers, we'll go ahead and close it at 7:41 p.m. as well. Mr. Capella, could you take us through old business, no action to be taken?
Sure, I'd be happy to. At the next meeting, I or someone else will be taking us through items A, B, and C. A are the reports from January 2024, the treasurer of school monies and the board secretary. B are education reports, the report of student enrollment from January 2024, the report of the health office January 2024, and HIB case VV 232408. And finally, the minutes from our reorganization session meeting January 2nd, our work session and executive session meeting January 2nd, 2024, and finally the regular session and executive session meetings January 22nd, 2024.
Great, thank you. Any questions, comments? All right, we'll proceed into the next section, new business action to be taken. Dr. Runajatasan, if you can take us through A, personnel, please.
Just a quick heads up, in 3 minutes, anybody with kids is going to get a phone call.
Yeah, if we can mute our cell phones, yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Fulton. If you can speak into the mic, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. If there is no objection, I'd like to go over the items A, 1 through 6. These are personnel resignations for the purposes of retirement, replacing employee, and new hires, a phys ed teacher, and there is a teacher taking on additional role and for transportation, a dispatcher for transportation. So, and in item number 6, a new hire for substitutes. There are 2 new hires, items A and B.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
I'll second.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Runajatasan. Thank you, Mr. Capella. Being my second meeting, I forgot the second. So, any questions or comments?
I would just offer congratulations to Ms. Russello on her retirement, effective in April.
Okay, roll call, please.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Adelis,
Yes.
Dr. Arunajatasan,
Yes.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Kim.
Yes. Dr. Moore, if you can take us through IMP, please.
Yes, I'd like to move the following resolutions under instruction and program. Number one, workshops and expenses. A and B. A is NJA HPERD annual convention, and B is a virtual comprehensive Orton Gillingham Plus training.
I'll second.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Mr. Capello, not Dr. Capello. Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Sadelis,
Yes.
Dr. Aruna Jatasan,
Yes.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Kim.
Yes. And Mrs. Zadelis, if you could take us through finance, please.
Sure. At this time, there is an addendum. If I can direct you to your yellow pages here, new business to be taken. The following resolution has been recommended by the superintendent of school to the Board of Education for approval. We're looking for, be it resolved that the board approve to renew the current certificate of deposit with Provident Bank and increase up to 1.5 mil with an interest rate of 5%, maturity date for December 28th, 2025. Funds will be invested from the capital reserve account. And number two, be it resolved that the board approve the addendum to the Behavioral Health Services Agreement with Prime Healthcare Services, St. Clair's, to provide one-time psychiatric evaluations for students at a cost of $510 per evaluation for the 2023-2024 school year.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Zadelis. Thank you, Dr. Aruna Jatasan. Mrs. Gorowski, did you have a question or a comment? Okay. Any questions or comments here? Mrs. Gorowski, I actually thought that the amount could go up to 2.5 million for the CD. Is that correct, or?
That is correct. We currently have $1 million invested on a CD, and this will allow me to invest up to 1.5 million additionally.
Okay, so it's either missing the word additionally, or we have to change the wording to increase by 1.5 million or up. Or should we change the wording to increase up to 2.5?
See, I read that as increase up to. In other words, from $1 million to $1.5 million. That just sounds fuzzy to me.
Yeah, and it's capped at 1.5 million.
So let's do additionally.
So how do we want to change that resolution? Up to an additional 1.5 million. Mrs. Zadelis and Dr. Aruna Jatasan, are you okay with that change?
Yes.
Yes.
That's absolutely.
Mrs. Gorowski, I really appreciate your work behind this, so thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Dr. Aruna Jatasan?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I went out of order. Dr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Sadelis?
Yes.
Dr. Aruna Jatasan?
Yes.
Mr. Capello?
Yes.
Mr. Kim?
Yes. Mrs. Zadelis, if you can take us through operations as well, please.
Sure. I move to approve the following resolutions under operations. Move to approve that the board approve the use of the facility to Divinational Associates of Yogeshwar, new nonprofit organization, on February 25th at the hourly rate of $85 per hour. Do we have a little bit more information on that?
Oh, before we proceed, I just need a second.
I'll second.
And do we have a little bit more information on that nonprofit?
Yes, we have a nonprofit organization from Parsippany. It's not a Denville organization, and that's why we needed to approve it. They do need to use, they would like to use one of the facilities for a cultural spring dance.
We don't reprove all usage. but we approve usage that's not from local community and for-profit. So this is a not-for-profit, not from Denville. But according to our policy 7510, there is an order, a pecking order of when certain things would be approved. And this makes the list of groups that should be allowed to use the facilities, as long as we can accommodate them.
So we don't have any prohibition against offering our facilities to religious organizations, do we?
It's something like number 6 down the list. It's like an
It's not a
order.
but it's not a prohibition.
No.
It's that, but we're allowed to, in other words,
It's actually saying to do it.
to do it.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
To do it if we can do it, and we can do it. So
Right.
we put it on the agenda.
Gotcha.
I asked Damaris to put it on the agenda because it's a new group and it's not a local community, meaning from Denville. Like, we don't put our PAL on the list all the time, but this is a little bit different. It's outside. It is a religious organization, but it is also according to our policy 7510.
And we
Great,
also
thank
want
you.
to make sure that we cover all the expenses as well, too.
Yeah, sure. No, great. Thank you for clarifying that.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Adelis,
Yes.
Dr. Aruna Jatasan,
Yes.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Kim.
Yes. Okay, moving on to a different section. This one is new business, no action to be taken. Dr. Runan Jatasan, can you just take us?
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Kim, but did we miss operations? Oh, that's the one we just did. My apologies. Sorry, I highlighted the wrong one.
No worries, no worries. Yeah, Dr. Runan Jatasan, can you take us through Section A personnel for our next meeting?
If there's no objection, then either myself or somebody else will move for the following items, which includes new hires, resignations, retirements, employee leaves, extra pay, salary, and adjustments. There are 2 items, A and B, there for external placements and to assist with book audit. And there are some family leaves and absences.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, Dr. Moore, can you walk us through what we'll be voting on for the next meeting on instruction and program, please?
Yes, either myself or someone else will vote for or present for approval of the following resolutions under item number 1, workshops and expenses. There's under A, there's an NJA SBO conference. Under B, the course entitled Introduction to Responsive Classroom. C is the NJS BGA conference. And D is a nonviolent crisis intervention instructor certification program. And for item number 2, there's a tuition reimbursement for a school nurse at Riverview.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay, seeing that there's none, looks like under Section C, policy revisions, there will be no policies that we're voting on or reviewing. And Mrs. Adelis, could you walk us through Section D, finance, for our next meeting?
Sure. At the next meeting, myself or someone else will go through the following resolutions under finance. We will discuss Valley View Science Department, New Jersey Gear Up Computation Thinking Car Kits, which sound very cool, to be honest. Be it resolved, we're going to be looking at the ARP Homeless 2 application for fiscal year 2022. The board is going to look at grants from the New Jersey School Development Authority and the New Jersey Department of Education in the amount of $38,451 for immersion and capital maintenance needs. And at the next meeting, we will also look at some non-resident tuition agreements, as well as standard operating procedure and internal controls.
Any questions or comments? Dr. Forte or Ms. Gorowski, what the SOPs, I didn't see the standard operating procedures as a link. Was that in the folders?
It's probably on the regular meeting for the 22nd folder, if it's not included in the work session.
I see. Okay. Thank you. If there are no questions or comments, then we'll proceed to operations. Mrs. Zadelis, if you don't mind walking us through the buildings and grounds.
Sure. At the next meeting, myself or someone else will go through the following resolutions. Buildings and grounds, we are looking at the approval to award Illich Corporation for the remediation of asbestos removal and pipe installation at Lakeview Elementary in the amount of $9,250.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just quick question on that. I'm assuming that's going to be, is that going to be a summer job or when that's,
Sorry, the asbestos remediation is in relationship with the HVAC project that we're currently doing at Lakeview.
okay,
And this is necessary for them to continue. So this will be done during the spring break.
during, but okay, obviously when kids are not in the school.
Correct.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, I was wondering the same question. Thank you, Mr. Capello. And of course, I forgot to ask if there was any comments about the committees during the section. So we'll proceed with good of the cause. And if we want to start it off, if any committee chairs, if there's anything that from the committee reports or minutes that they wanted to share and highlight. And then we'll go ahead with any other good of the cause correspondence discussion items like board meeting highlights. I do have a few things for good of cause as well, but I'll let the other board members the opportunity to speak first. Dr. Forte, did you want to go ahead and discuss the athletics at this point?
Yes, thank you. The wrestling team finished up dual meet record of 5-4, had 4 wrestlers placed in the county. We did have a county champion in Adam Sepulveda, finished first place at 149. We had a second place finisher, Caleb Fricks, at 97 pounds, and 2 fourth place finishers. Valley View finished 5th overall out of the 15 teams and had the third most victories by pins. There was 20 student athletes, 5 6th graders, 5 7th, and 10 8th graders on the team. Cheerleading this year, the cheer team represented by 22 students, 7 6th graders, 9 7th graders, and 6 8th graders. Had a great season cheering on both boys and girls basketball. Girls basketball, the team finished with a 4-11 record, made the semifinals of the county tournament, and the girls played hard all season. A few close games that would have made a better record. I witnessed a crazy finish to a game where they were losing and a girl hit a 3-pointer at the buzzer to put it into overtime. You would think that in a middle school basketball, from a 3-point lane at the buzzer into overtime. We ended up losing by like 7, but it was a great game. I was psyched that I was at that one. I also went over to see the boys play in their final game at and the semifinal at Wharton. That's the neutral site. They played Madison in the final and beat Madison pretty good ended up by 10 points, but we're up by 25 points at one point. So they were county champs. The boys basketball team finished up as Group 3 Morris County champions for the 2024. Clubs and activities. The clubs continue to run, providing fun and educational programs for a large group of students. In January, we added a new club called Board Games. This club gives the students opportunity to play chess, checkers, and other board games. Rehearsals for Annie are underway, and the show is scheduled to take part in the spring. That's always a tremendous event. And the last time we had Annie, my daughter was Miss Hannigan. So I'll never forget watching her play Miss Hannigan up there on the stage. Now that she's 23 years old, when she was in 8th grade, it was my first year as superintendent here. And my wife was involved in the the Booster Club. I know Mr. Capello, you've been involved in that. If you haven't been to one yet, it's definitely worthwhile checking it out. It's pretty amazing what these kids can do in the middle school. You're like taken back a little bit. So if you get a chance to go see Annie when it comes out in the spring, that would be a great opportunity. And that's it. Thank you.
That's great to hear the success of the sports as well as all those other clubs, as well as the musical. So that's going to be exciting. Yes, please go ahead.
So just a update or some information from the Finance Committee. I do encourage the board to look over the 2024 major concerns flyer leaflet that Dr. Forte put out. I think it's very important for us to kind of all have that conversation and discuss it. The Finance Committee, like I said, was able to meet. We will have our preliminary in March meeting at the March 11th meeting, I believe, and then the budget will be presented in April. A good of the cause that I do want to mention, I want to thank the PTA and the mothers who put together the Lakeview Talent Show this weekend. I was there for about, I don't know, it felt like 48 hours. It felt like I slept at Valley View. I probably should have just slept at Valley View. But they do a dress rehearsal the night before, and then they put on 2 shows on Saturday, 120 kids. You know, they diligently work on this project from August until this past weekend. So I just want to say thank you to the PTA, thank you to Jessica Tarr, Laura Gus, and Adria Villani, who put the show together. It was spectacular. They did a great job. And my daughter was a 5th grade MC, which was like a dream come true. She finally got to be an MC, but now we're done. So that's sad.
No, I'm sorry I missed that. I would have loved to have seen that. So, any other board members? I had the opportunity to attend the county, Morris County School Boards Association meeting this past week or last week. So there's a few announcements there that I would like to share. First is that the Unsung Heroes nominations are due February 20th. So I don't know if Mr. Corman has that application. If more information is needed, just let me know and I can pass it on. March 20th will be the announcements of the nominations at CCM at 6:30. It's a wonderful event. So if there's board members that could attend, come see me and I'll share more information. There's also the Irene Lefebvre Excellence in Boardmanship Award. We nominated Mr. Cass last year. So I believe that we could make another nomination as well. So. And Charlene had provided an update as well. So if there's board members looking for additional certifications, one of the complaints was that there was not a lot of classes available. Well, there'll be 3 classes available next month, the next month or 2. So New Jersey School Board's website will have more information. I did attend one of the breakout sessions where they talked about the different bills going through legislation. And one of the bills that they talked about was, in fact, the Dr. Forte, that bill that you mentioned that was approved, where if there is a November vote, the board had to quickly turn around and start using the funds in January, right? So there's a bill to hopefully delay that till the next fiscal year. So there's still opportunities where you could have a vote out to the public in November, and hopefully with this new legislation or bill, if it is approved, different districts can use those funds starting July 1st. So yeah, hopefully that passes. But speaking of the different challenges and the different issues that we as a district are facing, I did one of my personal goals for this year was to bring more of our issues to the delegate assembly. So I did pass out, or Ms. Gorowski helped pass out the draft resolution that I wanted to propose in the next delegate assembly. Dr. Forte, do you have a copy already? Yep. So this one's specific for purchasing school funds with operating funds. There's legislation that states that districts and boards are required to do that with operating funds instead of reserve funds. And so I was working with New Jersey school boards to hopefully see if we could change that so that if we have reserves, why not be able to use something that is as expensive as a school bus? I also added the electric school buses in there because, I mean, regular school buses might be 100,000, 150,000, but these electric school buses are even higher, maybe double, triple that amount. So there's no way that any district who's not eligible for that, the awards or the different funds that they're giving out, it's cost prohibitive from even considering electric school buses. So that's the spin that I'm putting onto this, and see if we can, if there are districts that have reserves, and they can spare it, then why not try to purchase this type of equipment with reserves. So I'm going to be working with Ms. Gorowski to clean this up, but I do ask that the board take a look and also voice their opinions and recommendations to any kind of changes. I also have a draft for the CDL license. So I want to propose in the next delegate assembly, and I forgot to announce that, the next delegate assembly will be on May 18th. But these resolutions to be presented, to be considered for the May 18th meeting has to be submitted by March 14th. So I would like to put this draft resolution up for votes during our next meeting. And I could definitely use some help with the wording for the CDL license one, or the school drivers one as well. So this is something that I wanted to propose with the transportation task force as well. One of the ways that we can address it is by, of course, talking to our legislators, but also getting school boards behind us as well. So those are my thoughts. Any questions or comments?
So, I mean, I think this is a great idea. I'm all for it and happy to help with the wording. On the school vehicles one, the only thing I would suggest in terms of wording is maybe add a section or add some text about that school buses are a long-lived asset, like you're talking about multi-year. So it doesn't, so that's why it makes sense, I think, to use your capital money as opposed to current budget money. So, but again, I'm more than happy to work with you on the language.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. And that's a great suggestion too, by the way. So my hope is that this resolution or this sort of draft is something that can sort of spur the juices. If there's complaints being made during committee meetings and comments like, oh, we wish we could do that, then this is one way that we can try to start that process, is to draft something up and get school boards behind it, so that when they talk to the legislators, I mean, they're a powerhouse in terms of what's the term where they, no, thank you. They're a huge lobbyist, right? A lobby group. So they can definitely, they have the funds, the money. And so maybe they'll be willing to listen to them as opposed to just, a Denville board member. So. Great. If there's no other questions or comments, I will open up public section at 8:08 p.m.
No one in the virtual.
Thank you. And being that there's no one in the chambers as well, I'll close open comment section at 8:08 p.m. Do we have a need for executive? Okay. Do I have a volunteer to take us into executive session? Okay, Mr. Capella, if you don't mind.
I volunteered too quick. Okay, here we go. If there are no objections, I move to convene executive session in accordance with Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act. The purpose of this closed session will be to discuss negotiations, legal, security, and personnel issues. Minutes of the session will be made available to the public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Okay, we are in executive at 8:09 p.m.